Hiyo, Editor Geela here, welcome back, and thank you for seeing part 2 of this first duo. If this is your first video that you're watching, check out the first of this duo, Dream, either before watching this video or afterwards, whatever feels right. Well, back to the script. Okay, now let's speedrun the second individual. Practically the protagonist of the Dream SMP because he's always getting into every single bit of plot drama, TommyInnit. His character sheet is so much simpler, thank God. Figured him and Dream were the perfect start to the series, so, from the beginning, I imagine TommyInnit being level 5 when he entered the Dream SMP. Definitely more noob in comparison to Dream. Level 5 begins the tier where characters have begun coming into their own, being known at city and kingdom level. This fits Tommy because at the time, TommyInnit was known in his circle and growing in recognition and skill, so he didn't qualify as a complete beginner that level 1 to 4 was. And by June 2022, TommyInnit has leveled up to 10 based on milestone level ups. And yes, Tommy leveled up 5 times while Dream only leveled up 3 times because, well, it takes more EXP and plot activity to level up as you get to higher levels, naturally. You guys are gamers, you know the concept. So, what is TommyInnit at level 1? There's an argument towards Rogue, but I chose Fighter, and he is not multi-classing. Tommy does have roguish aspects like being a thief, but Tommy is not stealthy nor skilled enough to be a good rogue. Not to mention, Guy would love to be the typical protagonist character. Like, is Tommy not the basic human fighter? You can't tell me I'm wrong. And yep, Tommy is human here. He's rarely drawn as anything else outside of Racooninnit or with little devil horns, but there aren't any official races like that in D&D. So, human it is. Since I'm making Tommy the typical protagonist archetype, I gave him the basic ability scores, the standard array. Choices of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. 15 into strength, 14 into dex, 12 into con, 8 into intelligence because really, Tommy doesn't make the smartest choices, 10 into wisdom because, again, Tommy isn't the wisest, and 13 into charisma. Strength is 15 because that'll be Tommy's main modality of attack, because, you know, Tommy wants to be the strong big man, and dex is next because we know that Tommy likes to run away from his problems. And charisma next because Tommy strangely has the ability to get the things that he wants via begging or persuasion despite his dumb choices. Lastly, con is 12 in order to be higher than Dreams, but he didn't want the con to be any higher because we know Tommy cannot take a hit. Low pain tolerance, GG. But yeah, with all the physical trauma Tommy goes through on the Dream SMP, I think he'd need at least a +1 constitution in order to survive it all. Now for human racial features. There are 2 types, standard and variant. Standard is boring, just giving 1 point to each ability score, so instead I'm going to variant human. Adds to the specialness of a protagonist and has better customizations. Variant gives TommyInnit any 2 ability scores that he wants to increase by 1, so I chose Dex and Charisma, now 15 and 14 respectively. Tommy also gains a skill proficiency of his choice, which I chose Survival because Tommy never has the best houses and Minecraft is once again a survival-based game. Lastly, Variant gives a free feat. Since TommyInnit has plot armor due to protagonist, I gave him the Lucky feat, meaning he has 3 luck points per long rest that he can use to reroll any attack, ability check, and or saving throw. It can also force the enemy to reroll their attack roll against him, possibly making them roll lower in order to miss hitting him. He also knows Common and 1 extra language of his choice, which I chose. Goblin. He's such a gremlin child, of course he knows Goblin. As for background, I chose Urchin, a person who grew up orphaned or poor, developing thief-like attributes in order to survive against the odds. Tommy in lore was an orphan, lab experiment, who eventually escaped and got picked up by Filza and grew up with Wilbur. Urchin gives Tommy proficiency in sleight of hand and stealth, as well as disguise kit and thieves' tools. First thing Tommy did on the Dream SMP was steal stuff, so it's very fitting. Similarly, Tommy gains the City Secrets feature, which lets him travel twice as fast in secret passageways in cities and such. Truly a raccoon at heart. And even now, compared to all the other people on the Dream SMP, Tommy's pretty poor. Now for the class features of Fighter. Level 1 allows Tommy to use any armor, shield, and weapon type. His saving throws are Strength and Constitution, and again, that con save comes in really handy against all the physical trauma he has to experience on the Dream SMP, and he also gets 2 skill choices from a list of 8. Tommy would totally pick Acrobatics and Athletics, great for any good fighter that he would want to be. Besides, the other options just don't fit him. Like, he ain't intimidating no matter how much he tries, and he's not as insightful or perceptive, and there's no way he would study history. Level 1 also gives Fighting Style, which I chose 2-weapon fighting. This is D&D, meaning dual-wielding restrictions of Minecraft are lifted. Like, Tommy jokes a lot about dual-wielding already, having 2 swords or 2 items like characteristics in his hands. He'd totally pick this fighting style if allowed in Minecraft, especially since he'd think it looks super cool. Now, anyone can use 2-weapon fighting, making a second attack as a bonus action, but it's limited to only light feature weapons, such as the short sword and daggers, which tends to give less damage compared to heavier weapons. And you can't add your modifiers when using your second weapon in your offhand. 2-weapon fighting style, however, allows Tommy to add his modifiers to that second bonus attack weapon, as though it's a normal attack. But the light feature weapon restriction still stays, so short swords it is. Last level 1 feature is Second Wind, letting Tommy use a bonus action to regain 1d10 plus his fighter level and HP. He can use this feature again after an official rest, whether short or long. Level 2 gives Action Surge once per official rest, meaning Tommy can take an extra additional action whether it's to hit again or use any spells he managed to get his hands on, like magical scrolls or items. It's simple, but it's good. And third level fighter is subclasses. Out of the 10 choices, I chose Champion for Tommy. Straightforward and simple, being the classic fighter build in D&D. And you know Tommy would love to call himself Champion. This subclass gives Tommy improved critical. Basically in D&D, when rolling a 20-sided dice, if you roll a 20 with no modifiers, it means it's a critical attack, double damage. Improved critical means Tommy gets double damage by rolling a 19, not limited to just 20 when attacking. Fourth level is the usual ASI. See, the smart thing to do is to add points into your ability score so you can have higher modifiers. Tommy is not the smartest individual and will choose things on their coolness factor. So as opposed to Dream, Tommy would have picked another cool feat, and I state Prodigy. This is a feat only given to half-orcs, half-elves, and humans. Not to mention, as character Tommy said, he is supposed to be the perfect human in a lab experiment, and he does show great ability to learn new skills. He just doesn't really put the work in. Prodigy as a feat gives Tommy a new proficiency, which I chose Persuasion to help him ask for stuff, and one tool proficiency, which I chose Mason's tool because Tommy knows his stones, especially cobblestone, his favorite block in all the Minecraft world. And another part of it is that he gets another language of his choice, which I chose Giant, because he wants to talk the big man language. Lastly, Tommy can choose one proficiency to have expertise in, double proficiency, which I chose Acrobatics to help him get out of sticky situations and to do cool tricks like MLG Water Bucket. Fifth level fighter, just like Rangers, get an extra attack, meaning Tommy can use the attack action twice. Since Tommy is a 2-weapon fighter, this means he can technically hit 3 times, twice with the normal attack, and a third from the bonus action weapons attack that comes from his fighting style. And with this, Tommy enters the Dream SMP. After causing havoc and stealing stuff, Dream would confront him, taking Tommy's beloved discs and starting the disc saga. Tommy would have had his first level up after the first major success in the disc battle against Dream that ended with him getting his discs back and safe in an ender chest, having garnered the experience with Tubbo by his side. 6th level is an ASI, which is unique to the fighter class. Tommy would pick another feat to help him after realizing he needs better weapons, damage, and armor since he paled in comparison to Dream. Tommy would take the feat, Dual Wielder, giving a +1 to his armor class when dual wielding, and can use one-handed weapons that aren't limited to light property, meaning he can dual wield with longswords and battle axes now, aka more damage. Tommy then continues his life now with Wilbur, Tubbo, and others for a new nation, away from the control of Dream. Through battles and death rolls made, Tommy gains another level after succeeding in getting L'Manberg's independence. And while yes, Tommy lost the arrow duel against Dream, Tommy still got the EXP since his goal of L'Manberg's independence still succeeded in the end after making a deal with Dream, giving Dream his prized discs in return for independence. So, this was a major plot lore milestone. Now level 7 fighter, Tommy gets another champion subclass feature, Remarkable Athlete, adding half of his proficiency bonus rounded up to any strength, dex, or con check that doesn't already have proficiency. Sadly, Tommy already has proficiency in all of these ability skills, but Initiative, when he gets his turn in battle, does get that added half proficiency because it's a dex check. This now means he gets a +4 to Initiative instead of a +2. Tommy is also able to jump longer as he can now add his strength modifier onto it. Not the craziest feature, but it does help a tiny bit. The democracy of L'Manberg is then challenged, J-Schlatt betrays to become president, Wilbur and Tommy are banished and shot at, L'Manberg then becomes Manberg. Tommy loses his home, his nation that he fought for, as he and Wilbur creates Poctopia, an underground system against Schlatt. Tommy then watches Wilbur go down a path of insanity, becoming emotionally abused by his older brother figure as Wilbur begins to work with Dream. Technoblade is an ally that is then brought in to go against Schlatt's dictatorship. The festival occurs, and Tommy watches Tubbo get executed. Tommy then gathers more support for Poctopia before going to war with Manberg. Poctopia wins, Schlatt dies pitifully by heart attack and stroke, and Tommy gives the presidency to Tubbo. Tommy then has hope and excitement towards the future. Until, of course, Wilbur betrays L'Manberg with explosives, and Techno attacks due to Poctopia putting in another governmental head when Technoblade clearly stated he was for anarchy. The Manberg vs. Poctopia arc ends with pain, but L'Manberg recuperates afterwards in a bittersweet success after all the loss, leading Tommy to level up. Level 8 Fighter is another ASI, but instead of a feat, in response to the emotional trauma, I say Tommy puts 2 points in Wisdom, a 10 to 12, meaning he now has a +1 modifier. However, Tommy's guard began to go down as he gave into his own mischievous antics and accidentally burned George's house down, who was the king of the greater Dream SMP faction. Dream then used this to manipulate Tubbo into exiling Tommy, due to Tommy's limited foresight adding into the problem and Tubbo's fear of another war. Tommy, feeling betrayed, was forced to leave with Dream, being emotionally abused and manipulated once again, isolated to depend on Dream. Thankfully, that increase in wisdom did save Tommy in the end, as Tommy finally realized the abuse and ran when Dream was elsewhere, eventually finding Technoblade's home. Tommy then stayed with Techno, thinking of destroying L'Manberg due to still feeling hurt from Tubbo's decision. But in the end, Tommy chose Tubbo. As much as I loved the Tommy-Techno duo, their relationship was doomed to fail due to their opposing views and values. Tommy chose what he wanted and needed, realizing he didn't like the person he was becoming. Techno, feeling betrayed, then teamed up with Dream and caused doomsday, completely destroying L'Manberg. But Tommy didn't stay down. He and Tubbo confronted Dream in the finale, the disconfrontation, and won. Tommy used his wisdom and charisma to get allies, knowing full well that he and Tubbo alone would not be able to succeed in fighting a level 15 Dream. Dream is defeated, thrown in jail, and Tommy is looking towards a road of recovery, leveling up to level 9. Level 9 fighter gives Indomitable, letting Tommy re-roll a saving throw that he fails, used once per long rest. Simple, but can be very valuable since it doesn't specify what kind of saving throw, meaning a wisdom saving throw can be an option against Dream's manipulation or a dexterity saving throw against spell attacks and traps. Tommy then starts building a hotel, desiring to create a place for people to stay in, before wanting closure regarding Dream. Tommy visited Dream a couple of times in prison, justifiably angry. However, when Tommy was finally determined to never see Dream again and live his life happily, there was a security breach, and the prison goes to lockdown, with Tommy in the same cell as Dream. Stuck for days before ultimately getting brutally beaten to death by Dream. 3 days then pass. Dream revives him with the revive book, but to Tommy it felt like a month in dark limbo, traumatized again. Tommy then finally gets to leave the prison, but he's scared to get hit, and now obsessed with killing Dream, stating the revive book is not worth Dream being alive. Tommy grinds in order to handle seeing Dream again in order to kill him, not feeling comfortable until he gains level 10 in order to face Dream, the literal nightmare of Tommy's life and mental health. Level 10 fighter is a champion feature, additional fighting style. So out of all the options, Tommy would definitely pick defense fighting style. Tommy's not trying to look cool anymore. Tommy just wants to feel safe at this point. So, defense fighting style gives Tommy a +1 bonus to his armor class whenever wearing armor. Tommy then returns to the prison with Ghostbur, but fails in killing Dream. Ghostbur dies instead as Wilbur is revived. Dream then eventually escapes, and Tommy feels scared once more. But Tommy tries to rekindle some of his relationships, such as with Philza, Technoblade, and the newly revived Wilbur. And that's it for levels, as nothing major has happened for Tommy to gain another level up as of recent. Now for the numbers. Tommy now has a proficiency modifier of +4 as a level 10 character, meaning skills he's proficient in gets a +4 while his one expertise skill gets a +8, double proficiency. For any remarkable athlete bonus, such as with constitution checks or dex initiative checks, Tommy still adds a +2 since that's half of his current proficiency modifier of +4. As for equipment, Tommy's poor, okay, not liking material hunting, so he begs for stuff. Thus, he probably has beginner fighter armor for the most part, chainmail, which gives disadvantage to stealth. Still, I gave him diamond boots because Tommy wears them a lot no matter what kind of armor he has, including netherite sometimes. Anyway, with chainmail, dual wielders +1, and a defense fighting styles +1, Tommy's AC would be around 18 as of level 10. Without this stuff or features, Tommy's base armor class would be 12, so he'd definitely want his armor. For weapons, Tommy would usually have 2 longswords like the big man sword, but I drew knife in remembrance of the early plot. A short sword since Tommy was limited to the light feature weapons before his dual wielder feat. And yes, knife could have been a dagger, but I like the idea that Tommy purposely misnamed a short sword for the jokes. Tommy also had the Axe of Peace for a bit, which Tommy could have dual wielded as well after that 6th level feat. As for why his weapons are enchanted and or have netherite, well, as we know, Tommy usually prioritizes upgrading his weapons before his armor. Lastly, HP. Fighters have a 10-sided hit dice, so 10 levels means 10d10, and with a +1 from each due to the constitution that Tommy has, adding in another 10. So I gave Tommy 74 HP arbitrarily, just over the +10 average. And yeah, that's everything for the first duo. Done! By God, that took forever! And just a few things about the speed paint before we end it. Since I only drew one version, I did a sort of summary/current version of both characters. Tommy has a white streak in his hair to symbolize his revival, the long and short sword to symbolize his shift to dual-wielding axis, and his pose being the excited, more mischievous side because even with the trauma, his base personality still pops in very often, until, of course, the PTSD takes over. With Dream, this is also a good summary, terrifying, decked out in full armor and weapons and a shield. This view of him is a better representation of his character than, drawing him in prison garb. And again, can't say this enough, I'm so proud of that Nightmare Axe. I just love the design. And there's a few more things that I'd love to talk about, but I'm basically done. I've talked for way too long. So if you have any specific questions on some of the design choices I had, don't be afraid to comment. I'd love to answer my thought process. Also, please comment your reactions. I'd love to know. Were you confused by the D&D stuff? Did I explain it all right? Did you enjoy the designs or the concept of each character? Which part did you like in particular? And if you do know D&D, do you agree with my choices? Or did you have something different in mind for Tommy and Dream? As for which characters to do next, I have a community tab poll that you can check out. Look at the description or the pinned comment. Here, these are the duo choices. Technoblade with either Filza, Rambu, Tubbo, or Wilbur. If there's someone or a duo that you really want me to do after I finish Technoblades, please comment it down below so that I can actually include it in the next poll. Anyways, gotta go work on this animatic now. Stay safe, annyeong, adios, bye!